welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into a crucial topic, the air defense systems shaping the India-Pakistan dynamic.
Absolutely. It's a high-stakes situation.
Especially since that 2019 air skirmish, right?
Yeah.
Both sides have really upped their game. India's got the Russian S-400 now.
And Pakistan has brought in the Chinese HQ-9. Major upgrades on both sides.
Exactly. So our goal here is to, well, cut through some of the hype and do a proper head-to-head look at these systems.
Precisely. And for you listening, particularly if you're focused on the UPSC exams, you know how vital understanding India's defense posture is. This deep dive should give you a clearer picture.
We're basing this mainly on a pretty detailed analysis from the Eurasian Times.
That's right. So we'll unpack what these systems can actually do and what it all means strategically.
Okay, let's kick things off with Pakistan's HQ-9. It's got a bit of an interesting background, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, it's developed by China's CPMIEC, yeah. But the core technology, it actually draws quite heavily from Russia.
Oh, really? From who?
From Almazante, you know, the guys who make the S-300, S-400, even the S-500.
Huh. So despite all the talk about China and IP issues sometime?
Well, yeah, in other areas, maybe. But it seems like with this fourth-gen air defense tech, Russia was perhaps more open to transferring some knowledge.
Interesting. And the HQ-9 itself has been around a little while.
Yeah, entered service back in the early 2000s. Pakistan got their specific variant, the HQ-9P, in October 2021.
Got it. So the HQ-9P, what's it designed to do? What kind of threats are we talking about?
Okay, so it's built to intercept a pretty wide range of things flying through the air. Your standard aircraft, cruise missiles, air-to-surface missiles, and even tactical ballistic missiles. It's got quite a broad target set.
And how does it actually, go about hitting those targets?
It uses something called a track-via missile system, or TVM,
Okay.
which basically means the missile itself helps with the tracking. It starts with inertial guidance, gets updates mid-flight, and then uses its own radar active or semi-active for that final lock-on.
So multiple guidance stages for better accuracy.
Exactly. And the system relies on this HT-233 radar. It's a 3D phased array type. Reports say it can track up to 100 targets at once.
100? That's quite a lot to keep tabs on.
It is. Crucial in today's environment with drones, missiles, planes, potentially all coming in together.
Makes sense. Okay, what about range? How far out can this HQ-9 actually reach?
Well, that depends. The HQ-9B variant, which China uses, is quoted at maybe 250, even 300 kilometers.
Okay.
But the HQ-9P, the one Pakistan officially acquired, the claimed range is quite a bit shorter, 125 kilometers.
Only 125. That's a big difference.
It is. And against things like cruise missiles, which fly low and fast, that range drops even more, down to maybe just 25 kilometers or so.
Though you mentioned other reports.
Yeah, there are some suggestions, sort of unconfirmed, that the Pakistan Air Force might also have the longer range HQ-9B. If true, that obviously changes the picture somewhat.
All right, something to keep an eye on. Okay, that gives us a good baseline for the HQ-9. Let's switch gears to India's big purchase, the S-400 Triumph from Russia, generally seen as top-tier stuff.
Oh, absolutely. It's widely regarded as one of the most capable air defense systems out there. Again, developed by Almazante in Russia.
And India signed a pretty hefty deal for these.
Huge deal. About $5.43 billion US dollars signed back in October 2018. That was for 5 regiments.
5. And how many have actually arrived?
The first lot, the first squadron, arrived in December 2021. And the latest count suggests 3 squadrons are now in India.
And didn't India just run some exercises with it recently?
Right.
Showdown, was it?
And that's the one, yes. July 2024. Their first big exercise integrating the S-400. And the reports coming out were quite positive.
What did they say?
Claimed something like an 80% success rate against simulated targets, which, if accurate, points to both the system working well and, importantly, it being integrated effectively with India's other forces.
Right. Integration is key. And where are they putting these systems? Any idea?
Well, officially, that's kept pretty quiet, as you'd expect. But the general scuttlebutt, the unofficial reports, suggests about 1.5 squadrons facing the China border and another 1.5 facing Pakistan.
Okay, spreading the coverage.
Yeah.
So what actually makes the S-400 so powerful? What are the key capabilities?
It really comes down to some impressive numbers. First, detection range. It can reportedly spot targets out to 600 kilometers.
600? Wow.
Yeah. And then the engagement range is layered. It can hit targets anywhere from 40 kilometers all the way out to 400 kilometers.
400 kilometers engagement range. That's huge.
It is. It provides this really deep defense bubble. Think of it like nested layers of protection, different missiles for different ranges.
Okay. And how many things can it track and shoot at simultaneously?
It can track close to 100 targets at the same time, similar to the HQ-9's radar claim. But the key difference is engagement. The S-400 can reportedly engage up to 36 targets concurrently.
36 at once. That's significantly more than the HQ-9.
Much more, yes. And that's critical if you're facing a saturation attack with lots of incoming threats. Plus, if you deploy it near the Law Sea or the border, that 400-kilometer range gives you a serious deep strike intercept capability into enemy airspace.
And you mentioned different missiles. It's not just one type.
Correct. That's a big part of its flexibility. It uses 4 main types. There's the really long-range one, the 40N6, that goes out to 400 kilometers, mainly for high-altitude stuff.
Right.
Then the 48N6E3, about 250 kilometers, good for aircraft, cruise missiles. Then 2 shorter-range ones, the 9M96E2 at 120 kilometers. That one's highly maneuverable for agile targets. And the 9M96E at 40 kilometers for closer threats.
And India bought all 4 types.
Reports indicate, yes, India went for the full suite. Gives them a lot of options depending on the threat.
It sounds like a very comprehensive system. Any claims about it hitting stealth aircraft? Like the F-35?
Yes, that claim is out there. Russia certainly promotes it as being capable against stealth fighters. Whether it truly can reliably detect and engage something like an F-35, well, that's still a hot topic among defense analysts, not definitively proven in combat,
Understood. Okay, so we've got the specs for both. Let's put them side by side, head to head.
Yeah.
S-400 versus HQ-9. What's the verdict based on the Eurasian Times analysis?
Well, looking purely at the data presented, S-400 seems to have a pretty clear advantage in several key metrics.
Like range.
Definitely range. You've got the S-400 with 600-kilometer detection and that 400-kilometer top-end engagement range. Compare that to the HQ-9P's claimed 125-kilometer engagement, or even the HQ-9B's 250 kilometers. It's just no contest, really.
And that difference is massive. It means India can potentially target Pakistani assets much further away.
Exactly. Creates a much bigger defensive zone, gives much more warning and reaction time. And then there's the simultaneous engagement capacity we talked about.
Right. 36 targets for the S-400 versus maybe 8 or 10 for the HQ-9.
Yeah. So against a complex, large-scale attack, the S-400 seems much better equipped to handle the pressure.
Okay. What about actual combat? Has either system seen real action?
That's another point of difference noted in the source. The S-400 has reportedly been used quite extensively by Russia in the Ukraine conflict. There are claims of it scoring, numerous kills.
Okay.
The HQ-9, on the other hand, hasn't really been battle-tested in the same way. Its effectiveness in a real shooting war is, well, less proven.
So theoretical capability versus some level of demonstrated performance, even if the claims need scrutiny.
Precisely. That combat experience, even if debated, adds a layer of confidence, perhaps, to the S-400's reputation.
Now, the Eurasian Times brought up something they call the spoil sport factor. This involves China and Turkey. What's that about?
Yeah, that's a really interesting strategic wrinkle. The issue is that both China, Pakistan's close ally, and Turkey also operate the S-400 themselves.
Right.
So this means potential adversaries, or at least nations friendly with Pakistan, have intimate knowledge of the S-400. They know how it operates, its potential weak points, its electronic signatures, its limitations.
And they could potentially share that intelligence with Pakistan.
That's the concern, yes. If Pakistan gets insights into the S-400's vulnerabilities from China or Turkey, they could potentially develop countermeasures or tactics specifically designed to defeat or degrade it. It complicates things for India.
Definitely adds another layer to the strategic calculus.
Yeah.
So despite its strengths, the S-400 isn't necessarily invincible.
No system ever is, really, and the article does acknowledge this. Even in Ukraine, where Russia has deployed S-400s, there have been credible reports of Ukrainian missiles, drones getting through. There have even been claims, again, battlefield claims, so take them with some caution, but claims of Ukraine actually managing to destroy some Russian S-400 units.
So it can be targeted and beaten?
It seems so. It reminds us that it's always a cat-and-mouse game between offense and defense. But that being said, the overall assessment still seems to be that the S-400 offers a major step up in capability compared to the HQ-9.
Okay. And it's important to remember, these aren't the only air defense systems these countries have, are they?
Absolutely not. That's a crucial point. Both India and Pakistan have layered defenses. India uses its indigenous Akash system. The Israeli Barak 8 the spy reader, the QRSAM, covering different ranges.
Right. Shorter and medium ranges.
Exactly. And Pakistan has things like the LY-80 from China, the FM-90, the Italian Spotted 2000. So the S-400 and HQ-9 are the high-end long-range components, but they fit into a larger network.
Good point. Finally, the article loops back to the 2019 aerial combat after Balakot. How do these new systems change things in light of those lessons?
Well, a key takeaway for India from 2019 was the lack of truly long-range air-to-air missiles on its fighters at the time. That was seen as a factor in losing the MiG-21. Since then, India's made big moves, bringing in the Rafale jets, generally seen as superior to Pakistan's current fighters, and equipping them with Meteor missiles.
And the Meteor has a very long range.
Significant range, yes. Reports say 100, maybe even up to 200 kilometers, plus they ordered more R-77 beyond visual range missiles for their Su-30s. So India addressed the air-to-air missile gap.
Okay.
Now, you layer the S-400's ground-based long-range defense on top of that improved air-to-air capability. It creates a situation where essentially you have Russian tech facing off against, well, Russian-derived tech.
S-400 from Russia versus the HQ-9, which is China's take on the older Russian S-300.
Pretty much, yeah. It's an interesting technological matchup.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, if we distill everything from the Eurasian Times analysis,
Mm-hmm.
what's the main takeaway on S-400 versus HQ-9?
I think the clear message is that, on paper and based on reported capabilities and experience, the S-400 seems to give India a significant edge. Better range, better multi-target handling, some combat background. It looks superior to Pakistan's HQ-9, at least the P variant.
And this just underscores how vital these advanced systems are in the whole strategic equation between the two countries.
Absolutely. They fundamentally shape military options and deterrence calculations.
Which leads to a bigger thought, really, for you listening. Especially, again, if you're tracking this for UPSC purposes.
Yes. Given that technology keeps racing forward, and we see even top systems like the S-400 have vulnerabilities, what comes next? What's the next big leap in air defense tech going to be?
And how might that shift the power balance all over again? Something to really mull over. Understanding these trends is so important for grasping India's security environment, relevant for both mains and prelims, for sure.
Definitely food for thought.
Absolutely. So if this deep dive helped clarify things for you, please do give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and definitely drop any questions or comments you have below. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And just to reiterate, our main source for today's discussion was the Eurasian Times.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.